All right, awesome. Once again, my name is Vernon Moore. I'm the Economic Development Chair person for the West Volusia Branch NAACP. Welcome to local government and its impact on underserved communities in West Volusia. I hope everyone had a fabulous weekend this weekend. Thank you for being a part of this program. I want to start off with prayer from our previous president, the great Mike Williams. Thank you.
Thank you. Could have left that last word off great, but anyway, we just do the work and try to do the work. But let's go to God in prayer. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity for bringing the willing workers together to try to help solve some of the problems that we encounter in our community, in our state, and our nation. Lord, we thank you for the people that have worked hard to put this on, and thank you for the delegates and office holders who agreed to serve or be a part of this today. Lord, as we continue to do the work of the NAACP, let us all go remembering those that came before us and the work that they did, so we will continue to carry the torch. Let this be a meeting of peace and harmony. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Awesome. All right. Larry Mack is here. Hi, Larry Mack of the Political Action Committee. Mack, go ahead, take it away.
Okay, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize. As always, Murphy is on call here. Murphy, anything that can go wrong will go wrong for me. So thank you for attending our joint meeting for the Economic Development and the Political Action Committee entitled Local Government and Its Impact on Underserved Communities. And our guests this afternoon are Councilwoman Girtman, Councilwoman Girtman from Volusia County, Commissioner Reid from Deland, and Commissioner Vazquez from the city of Deltona. And they are our elected officials that have agreed to participate and give us some feedback on how our, how they're doing in our community. So without any, if you will, further ado, we'll get right to the questions. And we don't have any particular order in which we'll ask the questions. So if it's okay with our three elected officers, I will first, I guess, let me ask you, do you have a preference on who wants to go first for the first question? We only have 5 questions. And if you don't have a preference, I'll go ahead and make that decision. So I'll give you a brief second to raise your hand if you have a preference.
We can start with county.
Okay. All right. So, so we'll give this first question to Councilwoman Girtman, and then I'll rotate the second question to, and again, for everybody there, each of our elected officials will get an opportunity to answer each of our 5 questions. So what I'm alluding to is Councilwoman Girtman will be the first to answer the first question, but then Commissioner Reid will also answer the first question, and Commissioner Vazquez will also answer the first question. Okay, so
Got it.
All right, so I'll start off with Councilwoman Girtman, and the premise is I'll read the premise first, and then I'll read the question. HUD defines cost-burdened families as those who pay more than 30% of their income for housing and may have difficulty affording necessities such as food, clothing, transportation, and medical care. Severe rent burden is defined as paying more than 50% of one's income on rent. For other Volusia households, there were 16,876 people at extremely low income, 24,130 very low income, and 39,751 low income. In those categories, respectively, the households earn less than $26,200 between $26,500 and $32,700, and from 32,701 to 52,300. So those were the increments. The largest of those figures is the low income families can represent many first responders and teachers, among other earners, based on figures from the Schimberg Center for Housing Studies at the University of Florida. So again, for each of our elected officials, I'm only going to read the questions each time. I'm not going to read the premise each time. All right, so Councilwoman Girtman first. What does the government have available to help its citizens with this disparity? And if you need me to read the premise again, I'll read it.
I do not. I'm fully prepared to answer. And the good thing is that there are programs available to support the cost burden, especially in regards to housing. And there are programs for first-time home buyers. There's resources for owner-occupied that need some level of rehabilitation to their homes, such as they may need help with the roof, they may need help with septic, repairs that can help keep someone in their home. So there are resources available, and I will put this phone number out there, 386-736-5955 is that contact number. I won't get all into the details of it. I know we don't have enough time, but there are also resources available at this time through COVID dollars, up to 9 months, 9 to 12 months for rental and housing assistance to help residents stay in a home, get in a home. There's also rapid rehousing dollars available through the county. And so I think there are a reasonable amount of resources available at this time. I know that the state of Florida also has dollars and programs available, and within the county and the state, there's help with utilities. So I think now there are resources. I think the critical piece is getting that information out into the public. And what I've asked staff to do is try to meet people where they are, instead of expecting people to get online to register and do things. We've got to make a way for those that this is not what they do. They need that help, and they need somebody to help them through the process. So to me, it's not that there aren't resources, it's getting those resources to the people.
Okay. Commissioner Reid, what does the government have available to help its citizens with this disparity?
Yeah, and Commissioner Barb Girtman alluded to something, is getting that information out. You know, the city partners with the county, with the Dr. Joyce Q. Scott Resource Center, which is a great avenue to get some of that information out. It's a great resource to get out in the community as well. From a standpoint of livable wages, the city this year moved forward on the moving ahead of the $15 minimum wage, and all of our city employees are now, the starting rate is at least $15 an hour. So at least for our city employees, which we have quite a few openings in the city of Deland. So there's definitely opportunity there. But as Barb Girtman said, there's definitely getting that information out. There's lots of grant programs, resources out there. It's a matter of getting it to the right people who need them. So.
Okay. And Commissioner Vazquez, what does the government have available to help its citizens with this disparity?
Well, thank you for having me today. And I'm glad to see a lot of familiar faces on the screen. So I'm going to echo mostly what County Council Barbara Girtman said and Commissioner Reid. And I think that everything that the county is offering is trickled down to the cities as well. And just to give you an idea what Barbara was saying, in the city of Deltona, we have rent assistance. And we also have held a few sessions to help our residents with rent assistance and mortgage assistance. And even though the county at one point ran out of funds, a lot of people didn't know that you can still apply for these help through the Florida, directly with the state of Florida. And so we did that, for our residents. The city of Deltona has a SHIP program to help our residents, which come from the state. We also have CDBG, and I think Daytona Beach also has that direct funds that we help our residents with. And we partner with a nonprofit organization doing food drives. And as Commissioner Reid said, the city of Deltona also raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour to all our employees. And we're having a way of bringing everybody up to date according to their rate or their scheduled salary. But I just want to point something out that I know a lot of people saying that they have not been able to get these funds, but you have to qualify for them. And what I say at the city level is that we do not make this application. The applications come straight from the state of Florida, and we can't change it. So we are giving and helping with all these programs, but you have to qualify. I am on the AHAC state board. I have addressed the fact that these applications sometimes can be a little bit difficult for our residents. So they're looking into trying to modify it, make it easier for our residents to qualify for all this help that's out there. But there is help, as Barbara said. A lot of people don't know about it because it's not publicized as much as it should. We had rent assistance in Deltona, only 5 people showed up at the library. The city is trying to make it more public out into the open, advertising it through Facebook, the website, flyers and stuff like that. We had the roof assistant and our code enforcement drove around the city. If they saw a blue tarp, they left the flyer at the door. So we're trying to reach out to our residents as much as we can.
Right, thank you, Commissioner Vazquez. And I forgot to mention to our audience out there, do us a favor, and while our elected officials are responding to these questions, would you put your microphones on mute? And again, it'll help us transition through this program with ease. And I also forgot to mention that at the end of our 5 questions, we'll have an opportunity for question and answer to our elected officials regarding these questions. So again, hold questions and put your microphones on mute. Okay, so our for this next question, I'm going to start with the Commissioner Reid. And premises, West Volusia cities have seen an increase in property taxes. Deland City Commission has approved a tax rate of $6.78 per thousand of taxable property value. Deltona City Commission approved a tax rate of $7.85 per 1,000 of taxable property value. Volusia County overall property tax rates is currently at $5.45 per $1,000, and a county council voted to increase it by 7.5%. So question 2, why do you think the commission/council voted to improve these rate increases? And do you think that economic inflation was taken into consideration?
I mean, we always look at the economics in the area, whether it's, small businesses or, on a national level as well. But our primary focus this year was kind of bridging the gap for those employees that weren't making a livable wage. We knew the state amendment was passed, and we wanted to get ahead of that. We were also faced with a really hard finding employees for certain positions, illustrating the fact that those positions were probably not in the proper pay range that they needed to be. So that was our primary focus this year. And in fact, without that increase for our employees, we would have been well under our rollback rate. But you know, we had over $10 million in capital funds this year that were all funded from reserves. We didn't have to take any loans out to pay for any of our capital expenditures this year in our budget. So we were very excited about that. And you know, it's a very important thing to limit the amount of funds that we're asking our citizens to pay, whether it's you know, our small businesses, our residents. Everyone's kind of hurting right now a little bit with the pandemic, and you know, the push that we had for our employees, I think was warranted, and we were able to fill some positions that we were hurting to fill. So I certainly stand by the commission's thought process in this go around. I will say, you know, next year it'll be a little bit harder to not pass along some savings to our citizens, but you know, we have to see what we're facing then as well. So,
All right, Commissioner Vazquez, why do you think the commission/council voted to approve these rate increases? And do you think that economic inflation was taken into consideration?
The city of Deltona did not raise the millage rate here in the city of Deltona. We kept the same millage rate from last year. Residents saw an increase in their taxes because the value of their homes went up. That millage rate is used to multiply the value of their home, and that's where they saw the raise. But we did not raise it. We kept the same millage rate of last year. And we took everything into consideration, not to raise it, but to keep it the way it was last year, considering, as Commissioner Reid said, you know, the city has a lot of expenses to pay up. You know, one of the most important things that we look at is the safety of our residents, the fire department, the police, the sheriff's department, and all that stuff doesn't even cover the expenses to pay those departments. But we in the city of Deltona took a very hard hit in 2006, where the value of our homes were extremely low. And so the city is trying to catch up to, you know, to the where we should be right now, where we're not, but we're trying to catch up to that. And we did the best we could. We cut a lot of stuff from our new project with the money and stuff like that. And, you know, as Commissioner Reid said, we raised the hourly rate for our for our staff. And there was other things that we probably could have cut, but it would have hurt the city. And again, we did the best we could. And the best we could do was to keep the same millage rate from last year. We did not. The city of Deltona did not raise it. It went up because of the value of the homes that went up.
All right, and Councilwoman Girtman, why do you think the commission/council voted to approve these rate increases? And do you think that economic inflation was taken into consideration?
Yes, I know that inflation was taken into consideration. Yes, there was an increase in home values, but that increase in home values did not make up for the rate of inflation and additional costs to the county in product and services. Our current millage rate actually was reduced. So we went to a 5.38. We are not at 5.45 as was indicated. which would have stayed the same. We are at a 5.38 partial rollback, which was a 3.4% increase over the full rollback. So I just want to make sure that that information is clear. We are at a partial rollback because I asked for a 3% decrease from our budget, from our general fund. So that's where that increase and that impact came from in relation to our general fund. We have to prepare for Sunrail, which the community requested at one point. The Amendment 10 was voted on, increased wages, which we also increased county staff to $15. ECHO was also a voted on initiative. And, you know, all those expenses have an impact on our budget. So I think the rollback, the partial rollback, I think was a good opportunity at this time. I look forward to looking forward in 22 to see if there is a better opportunity to reduce further than that partial rollback for next year. But I'll also mention that we have reduced our general fund millage for the last 4 years. So I think sometimes the information that's communicated, I guess, isn't fully explained. So people understand that we have had a reduction in the millage, but because of the increase in inflation and other expenses, the public may not see that. I myself, again, voted for the 3% reduction, but I also recognize that there's a small, in most cases, there's a smaller amount of impact. And is somebody speaking?
I think someone left their mic on. Please continue, Councilwoman.
So I said, I'd much rather see a smaller incremental increase than have to be impacted by a large increase in another year. And I think we also have to be cautious about how much of our reserves we're spending, because what if we have a hurricane? What if we have some, you know, major concern? We have to hold on to our reserves. So yeah, I certainly support the decisions that were made in regards to our budget for 2021-22.
Larry, if I may, can I just make one more comment? Ms. Commissioner Vazquez?
Yes.
So I've received a few calls from some of my residents complaining about their tax bill. And what I have done is sat down with them and gone over their tax bill. It seems like they look at the bottom figure of their tax and they're placing that full figure to the city of Deltona. But when you show them how it's broken down, that number is part of all the other taxes that they're paying. In our case is West Volusia Hospital Authority, Board of Education, and whatever else that you have to pay. And then when they realize that the city is only getting this little bit out of that big number. So I was able to see some of my residents walk away, still not happy, but you know, understanding that big number is not what's going directly to the city of Deltona. Just wanted to let you know about that.
Right, and I agree with that. And I think it's even worse for the county because you get your bill and it's Volusia County, right? But it may be actually Volusia County is 20% of that bill, right? So it behooves us to inform and educate the public to help them understand. And that's what I've asked staff to do, is to really be able to break this down in digestible, you know, chunks of information to the public so they do better understand that it's not all county, these are the services that you've asked for. And the difference here than New York, right? In Florida, you basically pay for what you receive, right? There you're paying, some large additional state tax and other that absorb a lot of, what we have to have a line item for on our county tax bill. So I think it's our responsibility to better educate the public.
All right. Okay, so our third question, we're going to start with Commissioner Vazquez. And the question is, what is your position on employers, public or private, mandating vaccinations as a condition of employment?
That's a very tricky question. Not tricky, but I don't know. My children are in the military, and the government, the military government mandates that every soldier in the military gets their COVID shots, right? In other areas, it's mandated. In Puerto Rico, you have to get your shots. I just got my booster shot, and I don't want to say that it should be mandatory, but I want to feel safe in my neighborhood. I want to make sure that everybody is safe, unless you have some kind of religious reasons or medical reasons. I don't see why people shouldn't get their shots. It's just to keep us safe, keep yourself safe, keep your family safe. And I know that the other day I was cleaning my closets and cleaning drawers. My son is 45, I think, and I found his little yellow card from his elementary school where he got all the shots that he had to get in order to be allowed to attend school. And like the general, I forget his name, said in the news when he was questioned, why are you forcing our military personnel to get a shot? He says, before they deploy, they get about 14 or 15 shots. One more is not going to kill them. So, why not? Why not, keep our neighbors and our families and our co-workers safe?
Councilwoman Girtman, what is your position on employers, public or private, mandating vaccinations as a condition of employment?
Personally, I agree. Personally, I agree with everything that Commissioner Vazquez shared. As a public official, I have been one of the strongest and loudest proponents of keeping our community safe with vaccine, with masks, with social distance, whatever it took. I was probably one of the loudest, or probably the only loud voice on the council to work towards that. However, what I also am and recognize is that I represent a public, and everyone in this public may not believe the way I do. And in the scenario of work, I think you have to be cautious. For one thing, I think that the employers are looking out for their bottom line. So when it comes to benefits, when it comes to time out, when their production can't get handled because they don't have the staff, because they're either out sick, their children are out sick, or, so I think there's more to that story and opportunity from the employer. But I also have to respect people who believe what they believe. So it's really a balancing act, because personally, again, I think, I'm really concerned about public safety, keeping people safe, but also recognizing that we've got to consider people who should have a medical exception, or maybe even those who have had the virus and have natural immunity. If that can be, documented and supported, is that another option? So I guess for me, Personally, yes. As far as being a representative of the public, I need to hear more from the public to really further that decision. On the council, I voted for it, but I also, again, respect the public and recognize that I'm representing their voice at many times.
Commissioner Reid, what is your position on employers, public or private, mandating vaccinations as a condition of employment?
Yeah, well, I first like to start off saying that I full-heartedly, believe everyone that should get vaccinated and take the precautions needed to protect themselves, obviously with their medical history in mind. I tend to go down the avenue of when you, unfortunately, this has become a very divisive political item when it really shouldn't have. And when you use terms like mandate, you're automatically turning the conversation on for a certain population of the community. I would definitely try to educate the benefits of the vaccine, and also offer incentives for those that do take the vaccine. The Barb and I believe Commissioner also mentioned, there's positions that have to stay filled, and when they're out, public safety could be at risk. So there's definitely a need to have certain protections out there. My hope is that through education, through incentives, whether it was additional PTO or some other means, that we can continue to increase the amount of people that are vaccinated, but then also really looking into, as Commissioner Girtman had mentioned, the natural immunity side. What does that entail, for, someone who's had COVID? Does that, allow a period of time in which the vaccine isn't as important, and there's immunities out there, to really get a little bit more information and be honest and open. And, the science has changed quite a bit through the period. We're always learning new things. I think that's, one of the factors that's, been challenging, because there's been some conversations where, oh, they're changing their mind. They don't know which way to go. So which definitely hurts the conversation. But I think being open, honest, listening to what the scientists are saying, what the research is saying, what the current numbers are. Are we going through a hot an uptick in cases? Are hospitalizations up? Do we need to, move towards, more of a mask institution of a mask to add levels of protection? So there's many levels of protection. As far as a mandate, I've always kind of been the route where I think that turns off a portion of the population, and I much rather continue a conversation than stop it.
Okay, all right. So now we're going to turn to some, if you will, political type questions that relate to public trust of the government. And the first premise is relationships are important, and utilizing that relationship to keep constituents abreast of vital information in a manner that allows formal feedback from constituents is of paramount importance, paramount significance. Question 4, Councilwoman Girtman. Councilwoman Girtman. Question 4, how do you, as an elected official, feel you are perceived by your constituents? I.e., are the relationships functioning positively, or are the relationships dysfunctional? And If the relationships are not positive, what is your plan? Do you have a community action plan?
It's a good question. In my opinion, I've received some positive feedback from the community. Also throughout Volusia County, frankly, because once I became elected, I never realized how much of my time, though I represent District 1, which goes from DeBerry to Seville, I never recognized how much of my time would be spent on the east side of the county. And especially through COVID and with COVID being recognized as impacting Black and Brown communities, I certainly included the Black community in all of my efforts regarding COVID and trying to get PPE and any of those resources for testing or vaccine. You know, I certainly included all of Volusia County. So I have gotten good feedback. I've worked to be fair and balanced because, again, I recognize that a lot of the votes and decisions that are made aren't necessarily based on my personal opinion. It's based on who are those opinions impacting, what those needs are, and listening to people that I don't necessarily agree with, but also trying to hear why they feel and believe the way they do. So if it's impacting them more so than it is, you know, another district, then I really have to pay attention to where that impact is. So I've worked hard. I've worked hard to try to meet people more where they are, where their needs are. And I've worked internally at the county to try to work to change culture. One of the things that empowered me or encouraged me to run for office in the first place was after being really dissatisfied with how the community that presented to the council was treated. So I've worked hard internally. I have no direction over staff, but more I can give feedback to the county manager and the county attorney, because they're the only staff that we directly have impact on. But I can certainly give feedback to say, when they give me the response from staff that no is not a good response to me, I need to, if it's no, I need to know why, and I need to know what the options are to get to a yes, even if that yes isn't what I asked for, right? It's the alternative to what I can get. But I'm not satisfied with anybody just telling me no, right? So again, I've worked hard across my district and across this county to be a representative, to be a model of what I expect to see in someone else. So not to say that there may not be negative, that somebody may not think I should do something other than I've done. But again, I feel like I've been a good representative of the people, for the people, and look forward. I've filed again to work to do this again and extend to complete some of the initiatives I've started. COVID has certainly been a disconnect for a lot of the opportunities in the community, but has still worked to try to stay as connected as I could. In the Spring Hill area, there's been a number of initiatives that we've done. I've done a survey to get feedback from the people. I've also worked with staff in regards to economic development to create a new policy for changing the PUD and the criteria to help redeveloped underserved communities, because a lot of times there's a lot of criteria that's put upon them that's just not going to fit for that area. So we need to be more targeted in looking at each area and meeting them where their needs are. So again, that's what I work to do in the ways that I can, not that I can improve for sure, but I always look for that feedback. Excuse me. Even to the point, there was a committee that I appointed somebody that had a differing opinion of mine because I wanted to have that person give me that other side of this story. So when I needed to make the decision, you know, I had both sides of it from a different perspective from where I stood on that issue. So again, I recognize it's not about Barb Girtman, it's about serving the public, and that's what I sought to do and will continue to do the same. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Reid, how do you, as an elected official, feel you are perceived by your constituents, i.e., are the relationships functioning positively, or are the relationships dysfunctional? And if the relationships are not positive, what is your plan? Do you have a community action plan?
Well, one nice thing about Deland is all of the city commissioners, we don't have zones. So all of the commissioners are for the entire city of Deland. So there's not a particular area or focus for each of us, which I think bodes very well for us because we can look at the city as a whole and really focus on what moves the city forward. I know for myself, I make myself available to anyone that reaches out, or I've reached out to a number of people as well, just to kind of, start a conversation or get more information. I'm an advocate of the more information that I have, the better decisions I could to make on the commission. So I've had a number of positive experiences, even with people that we don't necessarily see eye to eye, but we can sit down and have a conversation about, all the different things that go into the decision-making process. And there's a lot of different viewpoints. So a lot of times I come back with extra information that helps to make a better, well-rounded decision. So I'll continue to make myself available for anyone that cares to sit down and talk with me. I think that's, crucial. I'm very active in the community, serving on the PAL board, getting that program back up and running and facilitating programs for the youth there. So open for suggestions always, open for just a friendly conversation or not friendly conversation. That's fine too. I can take a beating. I'll take it. Sometimes people just need to voice their opinions, and I will sit there and take it and share if they want me to share, and not if that's okay too. So but I'll continue doing what I'm doing. I've had positive feedback and look forward to the future conversations.
Commissioner Vazquez, question 4. How do you, as our elected official, feel you are perceived by your constituents? i.e., are the relationships functioning positively, or are the relationships dysfunctional? And if the relationships are not positive, what is your plan? Do you have a community action plan?
And I'm sure all elected officials will agree, there are those who agree with you and you'll have those who do not agree with you. So you're going to be sometimes I'm more positive than negative and vice versa. I represent District 3 here in Deltona, but anybody who calls me from the city of Deltona, I'm available, and I try to get their problems or concerns resolved for them. But what I have done in my district is I have held town hall meetings. I invite staff from the city to come and be part of my speakers. I don't have outside speakers. I think that residents in the community need to know who are the people behind the desk in City Hall, who are they speaking to when they call, and what are these people responsible for here in the city of Deltona, and who better than the staff can answer a lot of the concerns that residents have regarding the cities. And so I do have these town hall meetings. I also team up with local organizations and have meetings at their site. I invite our sheriffs, I invite our fire department, I get everybody involved. I take people from the water department. I have taken our acting city manager to some of these meetings so that they can ask the questions directly at them. And so it's very important for our residents not only to meet their elected official, but also meet the staff in the city. They can feel more comfortable when they make that phone call and know who's on the other side. I make sure that I attend all my HOA meetings. I have a few HOA communities here in the city or in my district. I'm always there for them. I answer all their questions, any problems they have. I try to get them resolved. I think that on the basis that I ran for office, I think that I have accomplished more than 50% of what I promised my constituents that I would do for them. And I feel very proud about that. And I continue to work in my District 3, being one of the oldest districts in the city of Deltona, to bring it to that level of that our residents want to see it. Other than that, you'll always have the happy ones, and you'll always have the ones that are not satisfied, regardless of what you do. Just yesterday, I received a text from a resident who has been fighting, well, not fighting, but he's been pushing to get a place to play cards, just to play cards with his friends. And we finally got him 2 days in one of our community centers. And he was so excited. He sent me a text telling me, I want you to come and play cards with us. We meet these 2 days at this time. I mean, something like that really makes your day. These are seniors in our residents that all they want to do is sit down with a few friends and have fun. And so, I thank our acting city manager for getting that accomplished and giving them that space. But other than that, I'm open. My doors are open for anyone who wants to speak to me. And we're always good for some and not so much for for others though. But again, I'm always open for suggestions and ideas from everybody.
All right, question 5, we're going to start with Commissioner Reid. How can you assure that your workforce and management reflect your demographics, i.e., where do your African Americans and Hispanics rank in the categories of workforce and management? Commissioner Reid?
Yeah. I think our current police chief, Chief Umberger, has done a fantastic job of really reaching out and diversifying our department. A number of the recruits that we're bringing in are from other areas. We've reached out and had some people from LA, some other larger cities, but he's done a really good job of really even on the leadership team that he's brought in. Captain Dice from Georgia, and our new captain coming from New Jersey with a Hispanic background. So he's done a really good job, I think, of building a team, and that just kind of illustrates one of our departments. We obviously, focus on diversifying and matching our community, what our community looks like, and that's what we strive for. Can we do better in some aspects? Always, I think you always need to try to strive to do the best you can. My goal is to having the best people in those positions that we can have. But I would say really from the PD standpoint, they've done a great job of really pushing that envelope for us. So I'd like to see continued that throughout the other departments.
Commissioner Vazquez, how can you ensure that our workforce and management reflect the demographics of the area, i.e. where do African Americans and Hispanics rank in the workforce and management categories?
So as we all know, Deltona is the largest city in Volusia County with the largest Hispanic population. And we also have a large African-American population here in the city of Deltona. We do have a few Hispanics employed in the city of Deltona, and we do have a few African Americans employed in the city of Deltona. As you know, commissioners don't have the authority to hire or fire. That is the job of a city manager. We do can speak and on behalf of making it more opportunities for minorities to be hired, and I do voice my opinion on that. As the largest city, we just had a job fair. I think we hired a good number of minorities, I was told, and I think we're having another job fair on Monday, and I'm hoping that that number also increases, with the hiring of minorities. And I'm going to continue pushing it. I'm the only female minority up at the dais, along with Victor Ramos. And, we are very proud of our tradition. But I also want to point out that we also want to get good quality staff in our city. So we want to make sure that we educate our Hispanic community so that they can qualify for the best jobs that we have in the city of Deltona, as well as African Americans. And that's why I encourage everyone that speaks to me to continue getting a higher education or vocational training, something that can open the doors to them and give them more better training, a better job. The city of Deltona now has vocational training, some of their high schools, which will make it easier for our students when they graduate to go right into work. But can we keep improving? Absolutely. There's always room for improvement in our city to hire, minorities such as Hispanics, African Americans, Asians, whoever comes and applies for our jobs. But I think the city is working on it, and I think they're improving. That's as much as I can say. But I can tell you that I will be pushing it, and I will be representing, the people that are not well represented whenever there are job openings. And going back to Commissioner Reid, I think the Sheriff's Department is also doing as well. I think they have brought in a lot of minorities to work for 911 and a whole bunch of deputies who just graduated, and they're distributing their deputies in districts where they can speak the language of that section of the city, which I find it very, very nice. I know a lot of residents have said to me they feel comfortable because they can speak Spanish to some of the deputies that are around their area. And that makes me feel good. That makes me feel that they feel protected because they can communicate. But yes, can there be improvement? Absolutely. There's always room for improvement, and I'll make sure that I speak on their behalf.
And Councilwoman Girtman, how do you assure that our workforce and management reflect the area demographics, i.e. where do African Americans and Hispanics rank in the workforce and management categories?
So when I was elected in 2018 and took office in 2019, my first orientation had 40 directors or deputy directors come in, and there was one person of color, one Black female who has since retired. Since in those 3 years, I would say I can now count at least 5 that are either in leadership, the director of the department, or the deputy directors. So I have made every effort to ensure or to plant the seeds for diversity and inclusion within the county. But I also recognize that the competition for highly qualified Black and Hispanics, especially now, even before COVID, okay, it is very difficult to compete for highly qualified minority candidates in Volusia County because of pay. So I think the reality of who we are, where we are, and how do you compete with, you know, more metropolitan areas for certain high level or higher level positions, I think is also a reality, because I've talked to our county manager when we've had open positions to have those conversations about, okay, are we being, you know, diverse and inclusive in our search? And, you know, I've been told absolutely. We've had good candidates that were in the finals and we were beat out by other, you know, communities. So I think that's part of the discussion as well. You know, what kind of package, what else can you put together? Because again, you can't just pull money out the air, right? So again, I think we have to look, I guess, more broadly at our offerings and what's the best way of grooming people, bringing in enough people at other levels that we can get people stepping up into positions that are gaining that experience. So I think there's just some other ways to look at it, but I've worked with and met with our staff during our, they have biannual intensive leadership training for diversity, inclusion, and other. We actually have a Black HR representative. So that I think they've made some improvements, but certainly there's room for more. And I certainly continue to plant the seeds towards that end.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the 5 o'clock hour, which was our original limit. I've got another question, but I think we'd be better served if we, and I'll leave this up to our elected officials. I have at least another question, but I do want to give you an opportunity to expand or answer questions from the audience. So do any of our elected officials, would you?
I'd like to hear the 6th question.
Okay,
I would like to answer the 6th question on the record because I think it's important.
Okay, I have a 6th question. And again, I apologize. Like I said, we're supposed to, we're losing people now for the 5 o'clock hour, but the 6th question, and we're going to start with Commissioner Vazquez. What can you do to help get greater involvement and participation from minority contractors? Commissioner Vazquez.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Sure. what can you do to help get greater involvement and participation from minority contractors?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So, as I said before, I'm a member of the AHAC, which is the Affordable Housing Committee for the state of Florida. And they have mandated that as a member of the state, you also have to be a member of your local AHAC committee. And we are currently working with a local nonprofit organization that is looking to build some affordable housing in our area. And the organization, the company that we're working with, and I'm sorry I don't have their names, because I didn't even get those questions on my printout. I also would have had the information. But they're a minority company, a company run by a female from Miami. And she's the one currently working with this nonprofit organization to put this project together on affordable housing here in the city of Deltona. So, we try to reach out to the companies, but very little reach out to us. We found this company came to us. It was just a conversation taking place with, I think, the wife of one of them, who knew this one, and they knew that one, and they put everything together. So I am happy to say that they're all minorities in that group. They're African American and Hispanics. And the presentation they gave us was the best presentation we've ever seen before. And they're concentrating on affordable housing. Deltona was the first city here in Central Florida that they have visited, that they want to start building these homes. And the next stop was Jacksonville. And they're looking to expand here in Central Florida. But all their work is done south by Miami. And I'll tell you, if what they showed us to describe affordable housing, I want to move into one of those buildings. It is beautiful. They use top of the art equipment. And so I just want to say that the city of Deltona has already taken that step into working with a minority group.
All right, Councilwoman Girtman, what can you do to help get greater involvement and participation from minority contractors?
I think what Commissioner Vazquez said is part of the answer, and that is when we have RFPs, it would behoove us to have an expectation. I don't think we can require it at this time. I think that has to go another level to have it required that there's minority contracts. But I think it's something that we need to ask and perhaps give additional points for, if that is the case. What I've experienced since I've been at the county, and once I was elected, I started looking into this. What I experience here locally is that when you look at minority business, there aren't a lot of, at least in Volusia County, minority eligible contractors, right? So I'm talking about more, the electricians and that want to work directly with the county. Most of them that I've experienced work with the major contractor that's contracted with the county, because I think some of them don't want to jump through the level of hoops that it takes once you work with the government. I think that's part of it. But I also think, just like when we've had the minority business network, we've had other business networks, the type of businesses that seek to work with the county, I guess, are assumed or may not always meet the same criteria. So as I'm saying this, I think what can help, there's usually a how to do business with the county at least twice a year, if not every quarter. And when I've attended that event, it was, if there are people who want to do business with the county, number one, they need to attend this event. They need to be seen, they need to be heard, and they need to sign up on their website, but also create a relationship with the people to say, this is the business I do. If it's somewhere on the list of thousands of things that the county uses, there's an opportunity there. But when I look at the businesses that say sign up for the Black Directory or the Minority Business Network, I don't know that there's a good match. And maybe that's one of the things that I can help do, is identify more of the low-hanging fruit that's a better match with the types of businesses that are in the community, and have that the purchasing group come out and do a seminar in the community. Maybe that's a better way of approaching this. So I'm going to look at it from that perspective and see if there's a way to take that to the next level, and see if we can match a few up with the purchasing team, and see if there's way to pull through that opportunity to make a difference there. So thanks for the question. And again, it inspired some additional thought on how to perhaps make that connection.
And Commissioner Reid, what can you do to help get greater involvement and participation from minority contractors?
Yeah, I think, piggybacking on Councilwoman Girtman, really digging down into whether the information is out there, how to work with the municipalities, what requirements are there, to kind of build a process that individuals can readily get the information, because we a lot of times put a bid out there, and there's not a whole lot of contractors or companies that come back to the table, and that's our process for those jobs, is we've got to follow our procedures, and we need to make sure that those companies and those individuals know the process and know how to be involved in the process, and have the ability to partake. So whether that's with purchasing groups, or I think that's it's a how do we strengthen this to increase the participation, and that's where we can help out.
Okay, thank you, our elected officials. And ladies and gentlemen, now we're at that time where we can ask questions related to the questions and the responses that our elected officials asked. And I would ask you to first raise your hand. And the first hand I already saw was Mike Williams. So raise your hand if you have a question, and it can be to any specific elected official. And like I said, the first one I saw was Mike, and I see another hand there, but I don't know if Mike Williams is still with us. Okay, anybody else? Because I don't, okay, I forgot.
Evan Keller.
That's Evan Keller. Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
Evan.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. But
Okay.
go ahead and come back to me if you want.
Yes, let Evan, okay. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Great conversation. Thank you to our elected officials for their responses and their attentiveness to our community. So my question is kind of about hope for our underserved communities. Obviously, we see some glimmers of hope lately in Spring Hill, for example. There's a renovation of the Wright Building in progress, grand opening of Dr. Joyce Cusack Spring Hill Resource Center, and of course, the new Black Business Directory that NAACP has put together, which piggybacks on the predecessor MBN that both Barb Girtman and Vernon Moore worked hard to assemble. So these are all great small steps forward. I'm wondering from your perspectives, and this is a question for all three elected officials, what are the best hopes you see for moving our underserved communities forward?
Evan, do you want to direct that to any specific elected official or all?
I think it would be for all three. And I guess in terms of fighting poverty, I guess maybe to frame the question a little more specifically, what are the best hopes that you see for moving our underserved communities out of poverty?
All right, since Commissioner Reid was the last one. I don't know if you want to address that first, or I can.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, I mean, the hope is, you know, especially here in Deland is, you know, one of the things that makes our community special is the fact that we have a very strong community that's ready to get out there and support different initiatives, you know, whether it was the Bridge Initiative, which is, you know, a joint combination between business, government, and clergy, and then volunteers. But I think, you know, that's what brings me hope is I think there's a strong willingness out there to move the ball forward and to help our fellow citizens, you know, prosper. So you said reasons for hope. You know, our strong community, I think, really, you know, whether it's our Rotary clubs or just individuals that want to get out there and help, they're taking up the task. So I'm optimistic that moves the ball in the right direction, and you know, we'll continue moving forward and help out where we can.
Commissioner Vazquez.
So as we all know, Deltona is a residential community, but we're moving forward to bringing in more businesses. For example, we have Amazon, and one of the commitments that they made was to give a certain number of jobs to the residents of the city of Deltona, which they have kept their promise to, and they will continue to hire more residents. And we're also looking to open up more businesses to be able to give our residents here in the city of Deltona opportunities to get more jobs locally with a minimum wage of $15, even though it's still could be a little better, more for a family of 4. I don't think that cuts it, but it's a good start. I know for my district, we're working with a CRA project, which is a community redeveloping agency project, which the county has allocated a few of the tax money for the businesses there into the Deltona Boulevard. And one of the things the city is doing is that we're looking into getting a study to put sewer down on one of the main roads, which is Enterprise, so that we can bring in more businesses to the Deltona Boulevard area. We've had a lot of companies that have come with interest to open up, but because there is no sewer, they have turned around and walked away, but they still keep coming back to find out what the status of this project is. Deltona Boulevard is one of the main roads in the city of Deltona, so we're trying to make it, buff it up a little bit to make it more inviting for businesses to come there and provide more jobs to our community. I think that the more jobs we get, the more help it will be for the low-income families that live in Deltona. One of the things that we are asking the new businesses that are coming here, they have to allocate a certain percentage of the job openings to our residents here in the city of Deltona. Howland Boulevard is becoming very popular now. with more businesses opening up. So that's more jobs for our residents here in the city. So, one of the things that I ran on was, you make a house, you paint it up pretty, and you make available everything that the resident needs, and people will move in. Unfortunately, some of our streets are not readily available. We have no septic, a sewer. We have no water lines, gas line, but this is something the city of Deltona is working on now. So hopefully going forward within the next year future, we will be able to move in more businesses to Saxon Boulevard and Deltona Boulevard, and that will be providing more jobs to the residents here in Deltona.
Councilwoman Girtman.
Okay, so for me, the hope would be what I've been hoping for the last 10 to 12 years, and that is the annexation of Deland, of Spring Hill into Deland. You need to remove the confusion. One side of the street is county, one is city. One gets this service, one gets this service. And again, the community is the way it is because it's been allowed to be that way with the barriers that have been allowed. So my hope would be that we can give the resources that were needed, that were never invested, that should have been invested, and have an equitable investment that removes the barriers to the reinvestment that's necessary for that community to become an independent, thriving community again, that's not based on handouts. Because to me, what happens in Spring Hill is seen to be a charity view, right? What we have left, we give here. Well, it deserves more than that. It deserves what it never had. And though that is the resources that coulda, shoulda, would have been invested. So we need to look at Spring Hill from a higher level of what it can be based on what it coulda, shoulda, woulda been, and we've got all those communities around that have been putting in resources, right? That could have also been uplifting this community. So to me, the reinvestment needs to come from a higher level view. And I love that there's so many organizations that are willing to help, but we need the investors that are willing to invest, and the helpers can help along with those investments. So since you asked,
Okay.
right? Again, unapologetically, because what it isn't what people ask for. It was a community that always makes the best of what they can with what they have. So they make scraps taste good, but right, we're beyond that now. And there's a greater opportunity for everybody to share in opportunity, but we've got to bring the equitable opportunity to the table, because that isn't what's happening.
Okay, Mike, are you
All right.
still on?
Yeah, I'm still on.
Okay, yes.
First of all, and I know I want to be mindful of the time of the elected officials that came on to be with us this afternoon, and thank the Political Action Committee along with the Economic Development Committee to put this on. But a couple of key things they hit on today, and of course, you know, I'm politically active and I'm very involved. I have to go back and thank my 9th grade civics teacher, Miss Maddie Franklin Howard, who told us local government has a far greater impact on your life as students than national government. And I remember that 60 years ago, and that's why I've been fighting a hard fight for all these years. So thank you, Ms. Howard. I hope I didn't make an A in your class, but I hope I'm making one after all these years. But anyway, the point I wanted to make was a couple of things everybody touched on. How do you get the word out to the people of the things that are available to them? You all touched on it. You don't have to answer that. I know it's a challenge. And number two, I'm big on the minority contractors position. And Girtman and others who mentioned about getting people to apply and all those things. The world I came from was corporate America. And corporate America, the guys that sat at the top said, I want this to happen. And what they would do is go out and do whatever was necessary to make it happen. What do I mean by that? How many minority contractors do we know that are in the state of Florida? Forget about, not necessarily forgetting about Volusia County, but throw the net out wider that have somebody, maybe that's an HR function for you elected officials, I don't know, but somebody needs to notify these people to make sure they get on your vendor list, that when things come along and opportunities are there, and then when they get on the vendor list, somebody might say, well, they're on the list, that's all that's required. Well, that's not all that's required. You got to make sure that these people are made aware of these opportunities, because with the federal government, if they spend federal dollars on many of these things, a certain folk need to be minority contractors with these projects. Now, quite frankly, Volusia County has gotten an F with the NAACP for as long as I've been there, but I'm not here to indict anybody today. I'm just trying to say what we can do to make it better. That doesn't require rebuttal from anybody here, but that's just something to think about. I'm no longer president of the NAACP. Sean King is doing a wonderful job, but I even told Ed Kelly when he was the county council chair, and Ed been talking about making that happen. And I said, the world we come from, you just make it happen. You sit in the big seat, you said, I want this to happen, and we make it happen. But we never did really work together to make that happen. So let's do that and do what we can. But like you said, this meeting today was wonderful. Unfortunately, the audience is big enough, but at least we got to get the word out. And how do you get the word out? Whether it's through churches or whatever. And unfortunately, sometimes it's kind of like an oxymoron. You're trying to help people that even don't want to help, but you can never give up trying to help the people. That's my observation, and it doesn't require rebuttal from anybody, but just wherever you can use me, guys, I'm available.
All right, Shakia, Ms. Hinton, I'm sorry, Ms. Hinton.
Shakia is fine. Hi, everyone. So great to be here and to hear this lively conversation. If you hear cartoon noise in the background, my toddlers are awake from their nap and they are very lively. So just apologizing in advance. But my question, because of time, it was actually twofold, so I'll just stick to the one question for now. But in the beginning of the meeting, we started off with talking about the ERAP fund, so like the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I'm curious to know what type of partnership you all have had with either grassroots organizations in assisting you with helping families within your communities to enroll for the funds that's still available. And even if you've considered partnering with Mid-Florida legal services to provide the legal aspect in case folks are facing evictions, so that they can get some type of direction on how to go about this the best way for their family. So the question, if you've gotten lost in my jargon, is have you all considered partnering with grassroots organizations to assist in getting the emergency rental assistance funds out to the communities?
I can answer if I can go first.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so we in the city of Deltona do partner with a few of our nonprofit organizations. For example, for our rental assistance, utility assistance, and we're working right now with New Hope Human Services, which is Pastor Bradley and Pastor Bradley running it. And I've been working alongside of them to try to provide all these services like a one-stop for the city of Deltona. Right now, there's another organization that joined in with them. Don't shoot me, but I can't remember the whole name, but it's an organization who helps recovering alcoholics and drug addicted. The other one, now the house next door is in communication with them to see if they can partner. So we're trying to make it easy for our residents to have a local stop for them instead of traveling to the other city, neighborhood city, even though we also partner with the neighborhood house and other organizations in Deland, I think it's Deland, probably just Deland. But you know, and then we also partner with right now, you know, I have been contacted by one of the Freemasons organization here in Deltona that offer a lot of, you know, college tuitions and funds for the youth that nobody knows about. And so they asked me to help them get it out there to the community. Recently, they gave a donation to one of our local schools for supplies. They acknowledge our teachers. And unfortunately, a lot of the advertisement that we here in the city of Deltona make besides these local organizations that we partner with, is through the media. And the only way that you can get that information is if you go into our website and you sign up. So whenever we put something on Facebook or we put something on local media, all that information goes out to you. But every time we have something going on with the rental assistance, everybody knows that they will go to New Hope Human Services, or they'll call me and I'll put them in touch with who, you know, the areas that they have to go to. But I'm trying very hard to increase the availability to all our residents for anything that they need to, you know, to take care of their homes.
Commissioner Vazquez? Commissioner Vazquez?
Yes.
Well, you know, the city also has rental assistance. The city of Deltona also has that rental assistance program as well. That's what you were describing at New Hope. But here's what I would say to Ms. Hinton. Ms. Hinton, if you know about these things, get them to the right people. You're in front of some heavyweights here this afternoon. If the people don't know about all these things that you're talking about, so like in the case of what you're talking about, rental assistance, the person over at the city of Deltona would be Angela Bridge. She runs the city of Deltona housing program. I don't know who it is in Deland, but Kevin can tell you that. I don't know who it is. Well, it's Barb, is it still the people, you know, I'm talking about Peters, Lisa Peters, and Lisa and those kind of folks. But the kind of information you have and you're aware of it, get it to the people that know about it. I mean, I'm sorry, that can be of help to the people. So it's good that you got that nugget. That's what happens when you collaborate and everybody works together.
Yes,
Okay,
you're right.
Commissioner.
I'm sorry, can I please have the rest of the commissioners to answer before we hit time? I just want to make sure I get my answer.
Yeah, Councilwoman Girtman.
So the answer for the county is yes, and yes, but I'll go there. So recently we had an incident at one of the this transient hotel off of 44 and I-4. And there were like 56 families there that had to be rehoused. And what the county did was bring together 10 or 12 organizations to rapidly rehouse, you know, these families. So yes, it took legal aid, it took, you know, the whole gambit. So what I asked them to do is on a quarterly basis, because I said, this is a need where I talk about being able to meet people where they are, instead of telling people go online, fill out an application, see if you'll be one of the 20,000 people that ask, you know, that get on there. Well, these people are not those people. So can we have opportunities at the Spring Hill Resource Center that on this day, we're going to be there and help you through this process. We're going to have 10 or 12 agencies there, like legal aid, like, you know, various organizations that help with the children, help with the housing, the resources. They're going to be in one location, and we're going to help you complete this to get you and meet you where you are. So the answer is yes. When there are times when they do that, no, that's not an everyday occurrence. In my opinion, I think they get locked into we're overwhelmed processing these rental applications in this program that we're doing now. If they have something that they can't handle, they'll send it to the state, send them to the online state, you know, but I don't know that there's a lot of per se case management happening to the degree that it could and should be. So that is something that we need to do more of. We're looking at, actually, they funded $400,000 to fund case managers to work through our libraries, to also do pretty much what we're saying, and that is linkage with community resources to meet people where their needs are. So I think it's something that can definitely be improved on, but it's on the radar. People know who to send people to and who those contacts are. So if there's somebody not being served, or if there's an agency that can be also support to this, then please, you know, feel free to connect that information with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5:30. I guess I need to check with our technical expert, Mr. Moore, to see if we have to get off and end the question and answer session. And before we do, whatever your response is, I would like to thank all our audience and especially our elected officials for participating in this public forum on local government and its impact on underserved communities. And hopefully we can do this, something like this again. So I better defer to our technical expert, Mr. Moore. Do we have to get off with question and answers, or are we allowed any more time, or what's happening?
So we have these elected officials. First of all, thank you for being on. We don't have to stop, but I do want to respect you guys' time going past. I do see one more question from someone. Shakia has a good question, talking about community involvement with redistricting. I think that's a really good question, and then that can be it. Really,
Shakia, do you want to ask the question, or do you, or is that sufficient?
It's on the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. I'm multitasking mommy duty right now and trying to be a good listener. But just to verbalize it, I asked, has there been any effort or partnerships with the community in assisting with like the redistricting process? Because that would be something that I would be interested in, or at least knowing that it's already in place would be awesome to note about our lovely county.
Well, I can answer for the city of Deltona. I think our upcoming workshop is going to be covering the redistricting of the city of Deltona, you know, the different districts in the city of Deltona. I think our next workshop is going to be about that. If you live in Deltona, you know, you might want to attend our, I think it's, I believe it's maybe tomorrow, but I'm not sure. I have to check that it's going to be covering our workshop.
For the county, the next meeting for us is going to be October 28th. We are doing joint meetings with the school board. We both came up with a tentative map because we're trying to come more in line with our districting to also support the elections, because there's so many sample ballots and other concerns through the elections office. So we're trying to bring it in somewhat in line with the school board to try to reduce, you know, some of the concerns from the community and the elected, the elections office.
Is that in person or online?
It can be viewed online. The public meeting is always live streamed, and the public is welcome to attend if there's room through the social distancing. But my understanding is there'll be also community communication after we come up with what we're recommending, then it'll be out into the community for feedback.
Okay. Commissioner Reid,
Yeah, no, I just wanted to illustrate that the city of Deland isn't going through redistricting, as we're all open seats in our city.
all right, ladies and gentlemen, again, we're well past our time here. And, just like Toastmastering, if our, at the 3 to 5 minute time frame, you cut the responses off. But to do it when there is an elected official responding would not benefit the community. So there was no way that I was going to cut it off. I don't care how long you went on your responses. So I am very appreciative of all our participants here. And I want to also extend, if any of our audience has any questions, you can either send them to me, or do you, if officials, would you like the questions directly, or do you want me to forward it to you? Because I can easily do that.
No problem with anybody reaching out to me. I'm available at bgirtman@volusia.org. You're
Either way
always
is fine
welcome.
for me.
Welcome. Right.
Okay, all right. Well, with I guess nothing else needs to be said. I was really hoping we would kind of end our question and answer when our president was still here. I know he had another commitment, he told me beforehand. So I apologize for that. But if there are no further questions or responses, or let me first, before I end it, let me give our elected officials an opportunity, if you have any other responses, to make them. And if not, we'll go ahead and move to
I
adjourn.
just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I know it's recorded. I know it'll be on the website, so people still have an opportunity to view it and provide any feedback. Again, it's silly season. It's election time again. Maritza and Kevin, are you up this time?
I
Do you have
am.
to run? Are you running?
I will let you know.
I've already filed. Kevin, have you filed?
I have not filed yet, but I am planning to probably at the beginning of the new year.
All right, all right.
Good choices.
All right.
Barb,
But,
is this your first time letting the public know, Barb, or no?
No, I mean, it's the first time publicly saying it, but I filed probably a month ago or several weeks ago. So it's just a matter of getting things in line and in order. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So everybody knows, because once you file, it's out there in the elected Volusia County elections billboard. So,
Right, right. Yeah.
but I just want to say thank you to the NAACP for inviting me to this wonderful session. I think we should have more of these by other organizations. It gives out information to our residents and members of the community who really don't have the ways and means to attend all our meetings or watch our meetings or even have a one-on-one with all of us like they have, like we did today. But I want you to know that whether you're a Deltona resident or not, I'm always available to answer your questions. I've been here 21 years. I love the city of Deltona, and I think that I am so happy that I was able to fulfill my commitment and my promise when I ran for office. So again, you can reach me at the City of Deltona website. My name is very long, so just reach me there for any questions you have. But thank you again for having me.
Yeah, and again, thank you for having me. This has been a great outreach resource for everyone. I always learn information from our other elected officials as well. So, thank you for, it's always nice to hear what's going on in other areas. So, but all my contact information is on the city's website, my cell phone, my email. So feel free to reach out at any time. that's what we're here for, is to be your voice. So without hearing what you'd like us to say, makes it a little bit more difficult. So at least I always, value those conversations and interactions. So thank you again for all that you guys are doing in the community as well. Obviously, being here is, time spent away from your families and whatnot as well. So I appreciate you being here as well. So I look forward to the next one.
All
Thank
right,
you.
and thank you, everybody. I got a little dog tearing my room up here, so I better get busy.
And Mr. Chairman, this is just the first one of many from what the Political Action Committee is planning to do, correct?
Absolutely. We haven't decided on the next date, but you can guarantee we're gonna do it again.
With another group of officials.
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you. Good job. And it's a two-way street to commissioners, elected officials. Just like we lean on you all, you can lean on us too for anything that we can do as well.
All right,
All right.
everybody.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you
Have a
for
good day.
coming.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.